The strategic management unit is a very interesting unit. So strategic management has to do with decisions by very senior leadership in an organization, and so this unit is preparing you for that. It has 5 learning outcomes. Right, so being able to look at the indicative content. So this is the unit. This one, yeah, this is learning document. Right. So it has 5 learning outcomes. So the first one is being able to critically review strategic plans. And then the second one is to be able to propose strategic options for an organization. The third one is being able to create a strategy implementation plan, so the implementation of strategy. The fourth one is has to do with organizational change, strategic organizational change plans. Right. So we'll do things like learning how to scan the business environment, the internal and external environment, using a variety of tools, how to critically analyze the internal environment, and how to develop strategic options, review your position and develop strategic options, choose the right option, how to implement it, and how to go about change management. And the relationship between corporate business and operational strategy. So it's quite an interesting unit, quite a lot to cover. On Moodle, there is a textbook that has been uploaded. It's a textbook by Johnson, Whittington and Scholes. It's a very, very, very good textbook, and that's the key textbook for this unit. Right. So if there's anything at all you're not clear, just go and look for it in the textbook and read up what's written about it. It's a very good textbook for this unit. Start off, we'll be looking at the strategic management unit. So start with, this one. So the old name used to be strategic planning. Nowadays we tend to call it strategy or strategizing, just because we recognize that planning is just one aspect of strategic management. There are other aspects, including the implementation of the plan and things like that. If you look at some of the key examples of organizations that have collapsed, so these are very well-known brands in the UK that went bankrupt and had to be bought over or taken over or gone into administration. For most of them, for all of them, was an issue of poor strategic management by the CEO and senior leadership. So they didn't quite keep up to the pace with what was happening in the external environment or with what competitors were doing and new entrants to the market. So that makes us ask the question, what is strategy, right? It's a sometimes abstract concept in the sense that people use the word a lot, and we're not quite sure what they mean. Everybody has a personal strategy, everything is this, that strategy. But really it comes from the army, it comes from the military. It's the difference between winning a battle and winning a war. So sometimes a general, so strategy is the art of being a general in the army, right? In business, you can say it's like attacking markets, right? In the past, a good general sometimes will sacrifice a battle in order to win a war, because a war is made up of several battles, right? So it's looking beyond just a single battle to the bigger picture of the war. A classic example being when Napoleon lost the war in Russia. When he tried to invade Russia, the Russian army, the general, kept on retreating and retreating and retreating, and Napoleon thought he was winning each battle, because each time he went, he took a new city in Russia, he took a new city in Russia, he took a new city in Russia. The Russians were losing each battle and retreating. But what they were doing is they were drawing Napoleon deep into Russia to the point where his supply line for him to feed his soldiers was too stretched, and it would take too long to get food from France to his soldiers in Russia. And then the Russian winter came and they starved to death. So the overall strategy was favorable to the Russians because they had planned in advance and they have 2, 3, 4 steps ahead. And sometimes they sacrifice a battle, sometimes they sacrifice a city, sometimes they sacrifice even some of their divisions of soldiers in order to win the wider battle. So that's the idea of strategy as opposed to tactics. Tactics is what you do in each battle at the operational level. So we have a few definitions of strategy. But key thing here is that strategy is not just for top managers, but actually there will be a role for everyone in the organization. So we look at things like emergent strategy and plan strategy and things like that as we go along. Some definitions from an academic perspective by Chandler, Potter, Minsberg. So these are 3 big names in strategy, and a lot of what we'll be doing, we're quoting people like this. Michael Potter, very, very famous. Minsberg, very, very famous definition authors in strategic management. So according to Chandler, is the determination of long-run goals and objectives, so long-term planning for an enterprise or an organization, adopting the course of action, and the allocation of resources necessary to carry out the goals. So what are your long-term plans and what resources you need to do, what actions you need to take to achieve those goals? That's Chandler's view of strategy. For Michael Potter, strategy is about being different from your competitors, deliberately choosing to stand out from your competitors and be different in some way so customers will prefer you. For Minsberg, it's about a pattern of decision making, not a single decision, but the whole pattern of decision making. And for him, that can involve people below, not just the people at the top of the organization. So the long-term direction of the strategy of the organization, from the book Exploring Strategy by Johnson, Whittington, and Scholes, which is in the organization, and they have a fuller definition. So you can look at all the other definitions. So some key things between all these definitions are most of them will emphasize top management responsibility, except Minsberg, who will include those lower down in the organization. There's some aspect in the definition about the wise use of resources. So how you have scarce resources, so you better allocate them to the best use, and that is strategy, right? Impact on long-term prosperity of the firm, so some long-term planning and future-oriented planning. Multifunctional, multi-business consequences. So if your business is complex and has different units and different divisions or products, it's about the whole picture of the organization. Right? And you should consider external factors like changes in the technology, changes in product market. So all these are pictures of the definitions of strategy. We have 3 main levels of strategy. So you do strategic planning or strategic management at 3 levels. At the top, we have what we call the corporate level. So we do corporate strategy there. So this is where you are taking strategic decisions about what businesses you should be involved in and what businesses you should close down. So if you look at Unilever, for instance, right? They have cosmetic range, they have baby food range, they have different, it's a conglomerate of different businesses, really, And then at that point, somebody at that senior level needs to be looking at: do we need to start up a new business line? Do we close down some that are not that profitable or it's not a core area of specialization? Should we continue some? So those are the kind of decisions we'll be taking at that level. The next level is what we call business strategy. So for each of those units within the conglomerate, for instance, the baby food division or the baby clothes division or whatever, you now need to decide how are you going to stand out from your competitors. How are you going to make money that differentiates you from your competitors? And then at the functional level, at the lower down level, each aspect of the organization needs to say, how can we support this strategy? So for instance, we talked about how HRM will support the organizational strategy through strategic HRM. That's functional strategy. How will the marketing department support the organizational strategy through its marketing strategy? So that's what happens at the functional strategy. We want you to be critical in your thinking. One of the criticisms of this is a lot of the writing on strategic management and research has focused on profit-making organizations. Right? So this whole idea of competitors and profits and competitive advantage. But what about public sector organizations? What about third sector organizations, NGOs and charities, not-for-profit organizations? They also have strategy, right? But it's not really about competitors. For instance, the public service may be a monopoly, it may be the only education provider licensed by the government or the only healthcare provider, you know. And it's not really about money, profitability. It's about, for instance, maybe the quality of service you provide and so on. So we have to be careful, you know, and figure out how to adapt these strategies or even use totally new ones for different types of sectors. Right? So that's one of the critical things we need of this. So we've discussed corporate level strategy. We've said that's the decision about what business to do, what business to shut down. In terms of strategic planning, some of the key things at the start of the strategic planning process is to devise your vision statement, your mission statement, and your core values as an organization. So usually, at the beginning of strategic management process, you do some sort of process where you come up with a vision statement and say, this is where we want to be in 10 years' time. Paint a picture that can win hearts and minds of the employees, customers, stakeholders, everybody. And then a mission statement which shows how you want to get there, what your core values are, why you think this is meaningful as an organization. And your core values should be your ethical and behavioral guidelines, guiding how you achieve your vision, that you act with integrity and so on. So if you look at the diagram, it shows you that at the top, we start with goal setting. Things like setting out your vision statement, your mission statement, and then specific corporate objectives, which will now be, okay, we need to make profit, increase profit by 20%, or we need to increase number of customers by 40%. Something like that will now be your corporate objectives, flowing from your vision and mission. Then phase 2, you need to do some sort of situation review or environmental analysis. So this is where you do internal and external analysis. Internal analysis of the organization, for instance, using a SWOT analysis, external, for instance, using a personal analysis or whatever, to understand your operating environment. And then phase 3, strategy formulation. This is where you now actually devise your strategic options. What is my actual strategy based on my vision and mission and objectives, and based on this environment I can see of the future, that in 10 years' time, this kind of environment you're going to be operating. What do I need to do now? And make the choices. You come up with some options and you choose. And then phase 4 will be implementation. So this is where you allocate your scarce resources, people, money, time, and infrastructure, and so on, and monitor and control to ensure it's implemented well. And then you review the whole process again, right, and come up with your budgets and so on. That's the strategic management process. These are examples of mission statements by top supermarkets in the UK, Tesco and ATHE. You can see what the mission statement looks like, as an example. So, some people use this as a diagram to illustrate some key aspects of the strategic management process. So, number one being situational analysis, or some others we call it environmental scanning. We talked about scanning your internal and external environment. Some people talk about goal setting, objective setting, setting your specific examples, specific objectives. How many percent profit you want to increase, how many percent customer increase, what new business you want to start up. You have to be specific. Then creating the options or the strategies to deliver this and implementing the plan. Right? So you have different versions of that diagram, but that's basically the idea. So in step 1, when we talk about environmental scanning or situational analysis, you need to review the old strategic plan if there's an existing strategy already. So for instance, some organizations will have a 5-year strategy ending in 2020. So before 2020, so right now in 2019, they will be preparing the next 5-year strategic plan. Right? But they will have to review the old one to see what they can learn, what went well, what they need to continue doing and build upon, and what they need to change. They would also do some internal analysis using, for instance, SWOT, strength, weakness, opportunities, and threats analysis tool to look at the internal environment, observe the external environment also, and refresh their mission and vision statement. So this will flow into some goal setting process. So this is where you need to come up with what we call SMART goals: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound goals. So that's the acronym for SMART. Just highlight that there. You see this here. This is SMART: specific, measurable, attainable, relevant, and time-bound. Some people change the words a bit, but basically the same idea. But so, for instance, you need to actually set specific goals. For instance, you want to open in 4 new countries: Singapore, Dubai, China, and Germany. You want to open 4 new branches. You have to be specific. Or you want to increase profit by 20%, or you want to hit a 1 million revenue mark, or you want to increase your customer base by 40%. You have to be that specific. By 2020, by 2021, 20% profit increase, something like that. If it takes. We'll talk about the SWOT analysis. So the SWOT analysis means strengths, weaknesses, and opportunities and threats. SWOT, strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And what we do here is we use it to analyze the environment, especially the internal environment, but you can also use it to analyze the external environment. So the strengths and weaknesses are in the internal environment. Looking at your organization, what are your strengths? Is it the skills of the people you have, the number of the people you have, your financial investment acumen, capacity, your brand reputation? What are your strengths? What are your weaknesses? Oh, is there a certain skill you lack? Is there a problem with trust? Is there a problem with employee engagement? So you need to identify weaknesses that you can start working on and strengths you can build upon. And then looking externally, you can identify in the external environment what are the threats. That things, changes in government regulation, changes in policy, changes in technology that may threaten your business and your position in the market, or maybe opportunities for you to capitalize on. And we often say that the Chinese word for threat is the same as opportunity. So what one person sees as a threat can be another person's opportunity. Somebody can look at social media as a threat to their business, like traditional newspapers. Say, oh, nobody's reading buying newspapers again. They prefer to get social media. And that media company can look at it as an opportunity and say, well, let us now turn our newspapers into highly social media relevant, channels. So that's the question of attitude and perspective. So creating a path of selecting your options and then thinking about what options you have, what's your goal to achieve this 5-year vision or 10-year vision, and we'll be looking at this using some specific tools, over the course of the grooming sessions, and then implementing the plan. So a lot of strategy is good on paper, but the implementation is very, very poor. So it's not that people don't have good ideas sometimes, but they don't have the ability to implement. And this is where the whole idea of leadership comes in, the whole idea of leadership skill and ability, change management, manage change and influence people, and project management and implementation and control. So those are skills you will need, and there's some videos you can watch. So in terms of, we keep using the word strategy and say you have to choose. At the point you have to choose. So some key terms that we like to introduce when we talk about these things. One, generic strategy by Michael Porter. So these are 3 or 4 main options organizations default to. So either really organizations tend to compete or make their money based on being low cost producers, or that's on high quality producers and so on. We'll look at that in a bit more detail. So your competitive strategy is concerned with, how your strategic business unit achieves competitive advantage in the domain of activity. So what strategy does your unit within the conglomerate, like the baby care unit or the baby clothes unit or whatever? What's their strategy to achieve competitive advantage? Competitive advantage means what makes you more profitable than your competitors, right? So these are the things. So let's look at one of the most famous set of strategies or set of options by Michael Porter. Michael Porter is a professor of strategic management at Harvard University, and a lot of the models from strategic management come from him that are very popular that we use. This is one of the popular models from Michael Porter. So he says most organizations will end up with one of three strategies, right? Either cost leadership, differentiation, or a cost focus. So for him, choosing a strategy, you have to determine how you want to stand out from your competition. That's your competitive advantage. Do you want to stand out based on cost, being a lower cost producer, or being different? That's differentiation. Usually through being high quality producer, higher quality producer. Those are the two key things you need to choose. Either you are a low cost producer or you are differentiation, for instance, high quality producer. And then you need to also look at your target market. Do you want to target the whole market? That's all for a broad target. Or do you want to have a narrow target, niche market? That is, for instance, you want to target only old people, or you want to target only young people in the market, or you want to target only extra rich consumers. So, for instance, if you are selling Ferrari cars or Lamborghini, you're not targeting the whole market. You're targeting a niche market of very rich, super rich people. They are the only people who can afford your product. Right? So you have few resources, so you just use it to target them and make your profit. And sometimes you make more profit because what one millionaire buys a Ferrari car, is the profit you make from it maybe more than what 100 people with, you make selling 100 normal cars to 100 customers. So if you are going for a low cost strategy to the whole market, we call that cost leadership, right? And that's our very popular choice. A lot of companies will do that. So you see a lot of companies, they are the low cost producer, so they can sell the goods at the same price as their competitor, but because their cost of production is much lower, that means their profit is higher, their profit margin is higher. Or sometimes they can undercut the price and sell cheaper than their consumers and even chase their cheaper than their competitors and even chase the competitor out of the market or whatever. So the first strategic choice is cost leadership. The second one is differentiation. So you target the whole market, but you want to stand out by being different, most commonly by being the higher quality producer, right? So giving some superior quality to your customers. So the customers will prefer you because of your quality, but sometimes it may not be the quality of product, it may be your customer service that differentiates. You have the best customer service, or you may have the best after-sales service, or the best warranty and returns policy, something like that will differentiate you. But the most typical one is quality, right? So these are people who are not competing based on cost. They're competing saying, oh, yes, we are more expensive in our cost of production, and even the prices of our goods may be more expensive. But people are willing to pay because they know the quality or whatever, or customer service or whatever that differentiates us. So that's the most popular strategy of the three generic strategies. And then the third one is basically the focus strategy, whether it's a cost focus or differentiation focus. But this is when you're focusing on a niche market. Like I explained with the Ferrari, you focus on a high quality niche market like Ferrari. That would be the differentiation focus. Or you focus on a low cost market. For instance, if you know young people don't have much money to spend, secondary school children, and then you sell cheaper quality chocolates to them, right? Targeted at them. Okay. So, what Michael Porter argued is organizations should choose their strategy. Either they want to be a cost leader or differentiator, for instance, based on quality or customer service or whatever, or a focus strategy where they target a niche market and meet certain specific customer requirements or customer preferences. What he said is that if your organization is stuck in the middle, you are trying to do everything at once. You are trying to do low cost, you are trying to do high quality differentiation, you are trying to do market segmentation. You are stuck in the middle. An organization are stuck in the middle are what we call a jack of all trades, a master of none. They are not good at anything and they will not make profit, they will not have competitive advantage because when it comes to cost, there will be somebody who's cheaper than them. When it comes to quality or differentiation, there's a better preferred option. When it comes to targeting the focus market, there's a company that better meets niche market demand. So they are losing out. By trying to do everything, they end up losing out on everything. So Michael Porter argued that strategy is about choosing one of these three generic things. Generic in the sense that a lot of companies do them, so you try to do them better than other companies, but choose one. Don't try to do all. Don't all more than one. If not, you'll be stuck in the middle. That was his argument. Of course, this has been criticized by people since then, and so on. And some different ideas have come out like, okay, well, yes, you can focus on one, but you need to have some baseline on the others. That's what some people say. Others say, well, in terms of your conglomerate, your overall company, that's fine because this is actually a business level strategy. So your units, your strategic business units within the conglomerate, one can be focused on profit, one can be on cost, another can be quality and so on. That's fine. Others say, well, you can be stuck in the middle if all your other competitors are also stuck in the middle. Then there's no problem. All of you are stuck in the middle. Then you are not going to suffer any disadvantage. In which case a middle strategy is okay. Right? So those are some critical analysis that has come up as a result of what Michael Porter said. So then we now look at the concept of the business environment, especially the external environment. So these are things that can have a direct or indirect impact on the organization and the way it operates. Anything can have influence, and we tend to say that three levels of the environment or three layers. So if you think about it as an onion with three layers, in the very center is the internal environment. That's the organization. So things like your method of production, your HR, your employee situation, your financial situation, your research and development situation, things like that. That's the internal environment, right? Just annotate that there. Right, that will be your internal environment. Then the next layer above that will be what some people call the microenvironment, others call your competitive environment, right? So your micro or competitive environment are your direct competitors. So this is outside the organization, right? External. First level of external environment are your direct competitors, right? People who directly compete with you in the market, your suppliers, your distributors. So organizations that have a direct relationship with you as in your supply chain, either as a supplier or distributor or your direct competitors, right? And your intermediaries, your middlemen. And then beyond that, you have the wider environment, which some people wider external environment we call the macro environment, right? So these are your economic factors, your legal factors, your technological factors, your social factors, your cultural factors, and so on, your technological factors, things that are shaping the wider business environment. So your external environment is made up of two: the macro environment and the micro or competitive environment. and then you have your internal environment, right? So this is what we mean, and generally speaking, we use different tools, strategic tools, to analyze different environments. So your macro environment, we tend to use a tool such as PESO. PESO stands for political, economic, social, technological, legal, environmental factors. Your micro or competitive environment, we use a tool, for instance, called Porter's 5 forces. You look at your suppliers, distributors, customers, and competitors and so on. Then your internal environment, we can use either Porter's value chain or SWOT analysis, tools like that. Right. So if you read the textbook by Johnson, Openings and Schools, each of these environments has a section, a chapter, and it shows you the tools you can use and how you can use them. So I recommend that you do that. So the thing with analyzing the external environment is we are looking for things that are changing, especially in the future. We are looking for trends of what's happening, right? And important things that where the stakes are high. So those are the key things we want to prioritize. Not every single change we're looking at, but the key things we want to prioritize. And some environments are more complex than others, depending on your business and your industry sector. Some are more turbulent or fast changing, fast paced than others. Some are relatively stable environments. So if you think about gardening and selling flowers, the environment, the things don't change that much there, as opposed to the IT industry, where in 3 months' time you may be out of touch. So you need to understand the pace change in the environment and so on. So this was the tool I talked about for the macro environment, the wider external environment, the personal analysis. So you see there it stands for political, economic, social, technological, environmental, and legal factors. People spell it differently, PESTEL, PESTEL, and so on, STEP, and so on, but basically personal analysis. So here what you do is, for each of these subheadings, political, you identify 2, 3, 4 bullet points of things that are trends that are changing and things that are going to have an impact on your business in the next 5 or 10 years that you need to start thinking about to address. Then you go to economic, you do the same. Social cultural, you do the same. So that's how we do the personal analysis. Ideally, you should not do this alone. Ideally, you should have your strategic management team with you. So the CEO and the top executives will do this in one of their sessions or a series of sessions, right? And they may call in some external experts also, internal experts to give some information and data. It should be data-led and evidence-based, right? So you identify key changes and trends. So that's how you do the personal, and that's an example of things you can consider for your person. So for political, you consider things like political stability, the government you are operating in or a country you are trying to enter into is becoming unstable. Then you need to think about exiting or doing things differently in the organization or downscaling or whatever, right? Taxation, if you have more favorable tax policies in other countries, is it worth relocating to those countries, or is it worth at least budgeting for the tax increase that is expected in the next 5, 10 years? Already start, preparing for that now, and so on. If you do legal separately, you'll be looking at laws that will be coming in that will impact your business and so on, right? Economic factors, you'll be looking at inflation rate, exchange rate, GDP, economic growth, and so on, unemployment rate. So, for instance, if you have high unemployment and you have but a skilled workforce, then there's an opportunity there to recruit skilled manpower cheaply. As a business, you know that. But if the unemployment is low and it's difficult to recruit, then it may cost you more to recruit, or you may need to look for migrant workers, right, and so on. So you need to factor in all these things, right? If inflation is growing, at 5%, then does that mean you need to increase your cost of production or cost of goods that you sell and services by a similar percentage or slightly less, even more. If not, you will lose out because in a year or two time, the raw materials will be more expensive than what you've been selling for and so on. So the social, you look at the level of education, type of education that will inform your um, skilled manpower that you are hiring in your workforce, but also the consumer taste, and demand and so on. Religious beliefs, trends in fashion and consumer behavior. You have to look at that, and then technology. Whether it's social media, new apps, online shopping, whatever it is, you have to respond to that and use technology. So that's how you do a personal analysis. You have to look at factors like this under each of the headings that affect your business, especially now and in the future, and then on the back of that, we can now start planning what to do to address them. Okay, so we've come to the end of the slides. We've covered quite a lot. We've introduced the idea of strategic management or strategy or strategic planning as it should be called in the past, and we looked at your SWOT analysis very briefly, but more your personal analysis, 3 levels of the environment: the internal, the micro, and the macro. We looked at Porter's generic strategies. We looked at the role of vision and mission, starting the process of strategic planning. So we covered quite a lot. So any questions?
Yeah, actually, I'm just maybe if you can just explain to me cost leadership. I understood. I mean, it's about the more. That you need to be compete in the market by providing a low cost products. But what's the cost focus? I mean, it's in the generic strategy, 3 levels of strategy.
Yeah, cost leadership is not necessarily selling the cheaper product. It's that your cost of production is the lowest. Right?
Okay.
So you want your cost of production to be low. So if you are a supermarket like Primark in the UK and a supermarket like Marks and Spencer, we know that Primark has a lower cost of production than Marks and Spencer. They can decide to sell the product for the same price, but it means Primark's profit is higher because their cost of production is low. Or Primark can decide to sell at a lower price because it can afford to, and it will steal some customers from Marks and Spencer. So that's cost leadership. So your cost of production is the lowest. Cost focus. Now, so for focus strategies, what we are saying is you're targeting a segment of the market. It's market focus, niche markets, right? So for instance, you may want to focus on low cost end of the market, right? So for instance, if you are selling can think of the right one example. If you're selling chocolate, right? You know that a lot of people love chocolate, right? But some people don't have the money to spend on chocolate, especially maybe kids in secondary school. They want cheap chocolate, right? So you, instead of making chocolate all the price ranges for everybody, you just focus on making these chocolates for children. So that's a low cost focus. That's a cost focus, right? You can, on the other hand, focus on quality, right? Some people want, some very high quality chocolates, or some people want some chocolates that are gluten free because of their allergies, or nut free, no peanuts, right? So you're focusing on, that's differentiation focus now. You're focusing on differentiating your product. So whenever we talk about focus, you are saying you are targeting a specific part of the market rather than the whole market, right?
Okay.
So that's your focus strategy.
Okay, that's clear.
Yeah. So any other questions?
I think that's fine.
All right. Okay, so see you again next week, and we'll continue.
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. See you.